Hello! Welcome to PsycKicks. My name's Liv, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things spiritual, paranormal, metaphysical, and in between. PsycKicks! Okay, sorry. I had to get that out of my system. So, if you have returned here, it is because you're here for part 2, our discussion on spiritual psychosis, or you yourself are embarking on your own spiritual journey or learning about what a spiritual awakening is, diving into spirituality, and you should probably watch this video. And if you haven't watched part 1, go click to the little eye thingy. It's going to be somewhere. I never remember. Left, right, left is always different on when you're recording videos. But go watch part 1 and then come back, watch part 2, because this is part 2 of Metaphysical OSHA, a conversation on spiritual psychosis. So last time we left off, I think, on some really nice quotes from Albert Einstein and Colin Nelson. Let me check. I already told you guys I was going to read from my phone so that I can make sure I got all the information correct, because I don't just want to tell you my opinion, but also the information and the sources that I have collected for you as well, because it's more like comprehensive. You don't just want to hear from me, you want to hear from other sources that are educational as well. So all of those sources will be linked down in the description below. Some carry over from part 1 into part 2, vice versa, yada yada yada. But we had the quote from, nervous singing. I'm gonna find it. Colin Wilson, not Colin Nelson. Colin Wilson.
Wilson! I'm sorry!
So we ended part 1 with talking about how when thinking about the theme of spiritual psychosis, or embracing spirituality in a healthy way, and not getting lost in the sauce, if you will, it's important to understand these fun 2 quotes if you'd like. So the first one is by Albert Einstein, and Albert Einstein famously stated, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating process and giving birth to evolution." And I talked about how when thinking about this quote, you should use imagination in tandem with, or think about these 2 words existing together as the spice of life to evoke the flavors of spirituality, to really give you that depth of feeling, imagination and spirituality. So if you insert spirituality alongside imagination in this quote, you have, "Spirituality is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas spirituality embraces the entire world, stimulating progress and giving birth to evolution." We also talked about how evolution, in this sense, should not just be talked about or interpreted as in the literal sense, if you will, because it's the evolution of not just physical things around you, but evolution of yourself. Spirituality should help you to become more in balance with your mind, your body, and your soul. And again, we talked about how Colin Wilson, you use the same conjunction or tandem use of imagination with spirituality in his quote, saying spirituality should be used not to escape reality, but to create it. And that is a very, if you rephrase it that way, you could do a lot of manifesting, guys. A lot of manifesting. So anyways, I've been having a lot of people ask me about manifesting lately too. And one of the things that I have been telling people who ask me about manifesting, just, through private readings and personally, that manifesting is equal part action and equal parts energy. Because I feel like a lot of people manifest energetically but fall short on action. And it is equal parts action, manifesting, to energy. So anyways, moving on. So continuing with spiritual psychosis. Now, I've been working professionally within the spiritual community for 5 years, and it hasn't been until recently that I've been educated and had the term spiritual psychosis brought to my attention. 5 years, guys. 5 years. So I've noticed trends in the gatekeeping of ideas and practices, which we talked about in part 1, where one of the symptoms of spiritual psychosis, or being able to differentiate between spiritual experiences and distortions in reality, is having delusions or false beliefs that are resistant to reality testing, often involving spiritual figures, events, and ideas, while spiritual experiences may be temporary and open to questioning. So going back down to what I was just talking about, because that was just one of the symptoms and underlying things that Google generated as how to differentiate spiritual psychosis versus spiritual experiences and symptoms of spiritual psychosis. So I've noticed trends in the gatekeeping of ideas and practices when people come to me and ask to confirm or deny their spiritual experiences because I'm quote unquote a psychic medium. So I have a lot of people come to me during private readings and they're like, can you confirm if this experience was true? Can you confirm if my grandfather did come to me into a dream, etc., etc.? And while I am happy to attempt that, I can't always do that. And I usually tell people that 9 times out of 10, when you have an experience like that, you should trust whatever it is that you've experienced, your intuition, if you will. Because 9 times out of 10, I will receive information that confirms whatever it is that you've experienced. So for example, although sometimes I don't. So if you were to make a reading with me and ask to confirm a paranormal spiritual experience that you've had, I will tell you, you should probably, whatever I say, don't let it negate from what you experienced, because most times, 9 times out of 10, people's experiences are consistent with their spiritual experiences. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people find a lot of comfort in having a complete stranger tell them or verify things that the complete stranger wouldn't know about that they experienced, which I get it. It's validating. When I would do psychic readings when I was in college with my mom, I felt validated by having this woman give me a psychic reading and tell me all of these things that I already knew about myself, but she didn't know about me. So like having a complete stranger helps you with that, and I understand. And if I am able to do that for you, great. But sometimes I'm not. So if I don't have an answer, I'll usually ask them what they think, or I'll ask you, what do you think? Because as a spirit, I don't get information that you necessarily want. I'm here to give you information that you need. So if it's none of my business, if you will, in the spiritual or spirit's eyes, then they won't give me information to confirm or deny your experience, because it's not something for me to confirm or deny. It's not something that you need to know. It's something that you want to know. But if I'm able to give you that information of like certain things that happened, stuff that took place, specific details, etc., then great, I'm glad I can help you. But again, don't let what I say negate from your own spiritual experiences. However, it is such a delicate thing, hence why it's hard for me to explain it to you right now. I don't want to be responsible for telling someone that their spiritual experience is or is not correct. You should do that, because again, 9 times out of 10, you are experiencing your grandfather visiting you in a dream, or you are experiencing this paranormal activity in your house of this woman that used to live in your house that wakes you up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day to try and help you wake up in the morning. So if I'm there, cool. If not, also cool. But I've also had people ask me during a reading if I have like a certain crystal or ritual I can give them to tell them how to fix a problem. And I've also had other people share with me how another spiritual practitioner charged them interesting amounts of money to quote fix a problem that they had. And I don't know, it makes me feel funny when someone asks me if I can fix something for them in a certain way, and then have other people tell me the same thing that another spiritual practitioner had done to them. So I think that spiritual psychosis can affect both those we find ourselves looking to learn from and those who are trying to learn too. Because I feel like when we're talking about spiritual psychosis, if you are uncomfortable with this topic, that's a good thing. I'm proud of you for listening to this, because if you don't like what I have to say, that's okay too. If you do like what I have to say, that's also great. But I think talking about spiritual psychosis in a manner from someone who hasn't experienced it could be perceived as being directed towards you, the viewer. But I don't think it is. I think that even as someone that is a spiritual practitioner, a professional, I'm a professional psychic medium. I think even someone who exists within the spiritual community as a professional could still fall under spiritual psychosis. It's not just those of us who are trying to learn, it's also those who are teaching others. And then that's just a whole different like snowball of a lot. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. You know, people come to me, others can come to you. It's still just spiritual psychosis can be in those who are learning and those who are teaching. And at that point, it's almost like the proverbial like snake eating its own tail type of thing. It's just the snowball of a lot. So I also wanted to talk about this as well, because people ask me commonly if I believe that anyone can learn how to be a psychic medium, right? And my answer is no. And it's not because I don't think that everyone can be a psychic medium. It's just that I don't think that it's for me to delegate whether or not someone has the potential to become a psychic medium. I do think that everybody has psychic abilities. However, the extent of your capabilities with your psychic abilities are going to be unique and individualistic to you. So who am I to say, yes, you can be like me, or yes, you can be like John Edwards, or yes, you can be like Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium? I am not to say those things. It's up to you to figure out what your psychic abilities are. Yes, I can have conversations with you about that, but I'm not going to create like a 10-step program or a workshop or something to say, oh yeah, if you sit down with me, I'll be able to make you like me. I'll be able to help you become a psychic medium, because I don't think that's for me to say. I also think that when it comes to diving into and understanding spiritual things, we talked about this last time in part 1, how a lot of people, including me, have reached out to spirituality at a very low point in their life. I think that's just a trend that I've noticed. It's my opinion. My opinion is that I feel like I've noticed that a lot of people reach out to spirituality in a low point in your life. And when you're at a low point in your life, we could not be thinking clearly. And if we start consuming all of these different spiritual ideas, that is where I think the disconnection from rooting yourself in reality with spirituality and using it to dissociate and escape reality is the line, or where it starts to disconnect. So when it comes to people reaching out to me saying, can I become a psychic medium like you? Do you have psychic abilities? Yes. Do I think it's my responsibility, purpose? Do I think I'm cool enough to tell you that? No. But if we want to have a conversation about it, we can talk about it. But I'm not going to say, yes, you can do this, because even though, like, the same applies to anything else anyone could ever do. When it comes to psychic abilities, it's the same as singing, playing an instrument, becoming a super cool ninja karate person, an architect, whatever it is that you thought was really, really cool when you were a kid. And like, I wanted to be a pop star when I was a kid. Did I become a pop star? No. But you know, I think when you are a psychic medium, it's just the same as if you were a pop star, or if you were anything else that someone could look up to with your abilities, your skills, whatever it is that you have. I think some people are inherently better at things that they do than others. There may be someone who has studied opera for like professionally as a structured education so that they could become a performer. And then you have some Joe Schmo off the street who only listens to opera, who has heard it once, that can sing Ave Maria better than someone that has a doctorate in performing arts in opera. So that's what I think about when it comes to can you become a medium, or is it something that you're born with? Is it something that you learn? I think that, you know, everyone is born with a certain set of skills. However, the aptitude in those skills is going to be able to extend so far with understanding and training versus to someone who's naturally good at it. So do with that information what you will. What this has to do with spiritual psychosis is and why I don't like to tell people that and say, yes, everyone can just be a medium, or yes, I can teach you how to be a medium, just, you know, do my courses or whatever, my workshop, is because the intense focus of becoming quote unquote something can trigger in certain individuals, potentially contributing to a psychotic episode. So like, it doesn't have to be just a psychic medium. It can be a pop star. It can be an architect. It can be an opera singer. It can be a really cool DJ guy that mixes music. Whatever it is, I feel like if someone says, yes, you can do it, and then here's all of these things that I offer you in order to make money so that you can do these things, can contribute to mental health, can contribute negatively to mental health. Because anything that having an intense focus can potentially contribute to or trigger a psychotic episode. So I feel like with the trend that I've noticed with people entering or beginning on their own spiritual journey at a very low point in their life, when maybe everything may not be mentally clear for them or emotionally stable for them, financially stable, just stable in general, telling someone something like that could be potentially harmful. Hence, why I try to not do it, and why some people may get their feelings hurt from that, and that's okay, because I'd rather you be angry at me than me helping you or hurting you by thinking that I'm helping. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, so to continue on that, psychosis is a mental health condition characterized by a loss of contact with reality, often involving hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized thinking. So there's, like, this is the elaboration that Google gave me for how anything, if marketed in a certain way, can become potentially harmful to someone's mental state. And I feel like in spiritual psychosis or spirituality and subsequent possible spiritual psychosis, that's how these things could play. So, stress and trauma. The pursuit of personal growth or success, whether it be as trying to become a medium or not, or, you know, realize that you have mediumship capabilities or potential, can be a significant source of stress and emotional trauma, particularly if it involves intense competition, unrealistic goals, or feelings of inadequacy. This stress can trigger or exacerbate underlying vulnerabilities that may lead to a psychotic episode. When it comes to talking to dead people, that is the most unrealistic expectation I could ever see myself perceiving. And I used to as a child as well. Even though I'm a psychic medium now, my mom was a psychic medium before I realized that I was a medium. I knew that I had like psychic abilities, but I didn't understand my mediumship capabilities or anything. Like, I didn't even know I could talk to animals until I was like a junior in college. That just happened one day. So like, putting the expectations of doing these things on yourself, when in my opinion spirituality is something that should be organic and just happens, it ebbs and it flows. That's something that I talk about in Patreon in our mediumship circles, where it's just an open conversation about people's spiritual experiences so that we can bounce ideas off of each other and understand what it is that's going on and that we're experiencing and growing as individuals. Like, being able to listen to someone else's experience can help give you information about your experiences. But anyways, like, mediumship and psychic abilities ebb and flow. They change, they evolve. So again, telling you, yes, you could do this is not helpful in my perspective, because being able to talk to souls, something that's physically not there, in a rational mind, is the most ridiculously preposterous thing you could ever think about. So all of these things that we're talking about that could lead to spiritual psychosis, that's just like one of the really big ones that has caught my attention. So, psychosis and mental illness. Psychosis is a symptom of various mental illnesses, including schizophrenia, bipolar, and severe depression, just to name a few, not all of them. And these conditions can be triggered by environmental stressors, including the relentless pressure to achieve success. So again, if you're meeting someone at a very low point, or you're at a very low point, and you're like, this is what I need, this is what I want to do, that could be, it could be moving in the wrong direction, and not in the right way. Distorted thinking. The intense focus on achieving a specific goal can sometimes lead to distorted thinking patterns where an individual's perceptions of reality become skewed. This can manifest as irrational beliefs or hallucinations, leading to a psychotic experience or a psychotic episode. So that's just another thing. Seeking validation and identity. Again, when people start to dive into spirituality, I don't think it's always at the most stable parts of their life, which is fine. I have done that as well. However, when you have the desire to achieve a certain status or identity, that can drive individuals to engage in risky behaviors or form unhealthy attachments. These behaviors, if they are not supported by healthy coping mechanisms, can lead to psychosis. Then there's also genetic and environmental factors as well. So like the genetic predisposition for these underlying health conditions that can, not like stack up, but interplay with one another or engage with one another to create the psychotic episode. And then adding spirituality to all of this can become a really nasty mix for disaster. So it's important, it's crucial to remember that psychosis is a complex condition. It is not a diagnostic term, and its causes are multifaceted. While the relentless pursuit of success can contribute to psychosis in certain individuals, it is not a direct cause for everyone. So if you or someone you know is experiencing symptoms of psychosis, it's essential to seek professional help. This video is not here to treat or talk about any type of to treat or prevent any mental health issues, etc. Any mental health or health issues. It is here to educate. If you need something, seek a professional, please. So, oftentimes, like I've said, people seek out spirituality in order to heal from something, but spirituality is like any other thing. Too much of it can be bad. And if you're already not in a healthy state of mind, just like a physical substance, spirituality, although not always physical, can be abused and become hurtful, not healing. Throughout the time I began embracing my mediumship professionally, I have noticed and found it personally hard to find a place for myself within the professional spiritual space because so many make it seem like spirituality is not rooted in physicality. That to be spiritual, one must be connected to this other world or this non-tangible thing. Again, metaphysical is not physical, it's metaphysical. And a lot of times, I want to make a video for you guys revisiting spirit guides, because I think a lot of my understanding and perspective on spirit guides and how to communicate with your spirit guides has changed over the 5 years that I've been diving into the spiritual community, not just as a medium, but learning about spirituality and spiritual concepts themselves. So it's hard when we're talking about non-physical things in the first place, because doing math equations is easy, but spirituality isn't 2 + 2 = 4. So that can just add another layer of unrealistic things onto everything, I guess, which is hard when someone actually needs something tangible, because sometimes you need something tangible to feel better. And when you're reaching for things that really aren't tangible and trying to make them tangible, it just, again, is just a snowball effect of not the best things ever. I have been realizing that I have found it hard to find my place within, spirituality, the spiritual community as a professional, because so many seem to make it that spirituality is not rooted in physicality, that to be spiritual, one must be connected to this other world, this non-tangible, unphysical, non-realistic essence. And that if you're not vibing in another dimension, then you're just not doing it right, which has been hard for me because I find it hard to relate to that. But now I believe this wholeheartedly to be untrue. That if you're just vibing in another dimension, then you're cool. But again, I don't think that's true. I think true spirituality should connect you and make you feel... I think true spirituality should make you feel more connected and in tune with the world around you. Again, in part 1, we talk about the mind, the body, and the spirit, finding balance within one another through spirituality. What did I write that I can't say without writing it. Writing is like a really good medium for me, whereas talking is, but writing is like my jam. True spirituality should connect you and make you feel more attuned to or in harmony with the real world around you, not less. Spirituality is not a vessel in which to escape reality, but to embrace it. And I think that because I was so new to spirituality when I began offering readings professionally, that the reason I felt so unaligned with spirituality is because so many others use it as a way to escape reality, to hide from the things which have harmed them, instead of using spirituality as a tool to heal and empower themselves. Which sounds romantically positive, but in all reality is a horribly, horribly, horribly hard thing to do. It's like many people within the spiritual community are telling a story, but very, very horribly missing the punchline. I guess what I was trying to say is that I've been trying to find my way or my path, my area, my little space, if you will, within the spiritual community, but now I found it. It's just been a little bit hard. I feel like I've uncovered a tiny path, but I'm not necessarily sure where it will lead. So this is the one thing I was really excited to talk about, and specifically the reason I made a part 2, because I don't think I've heard, gotta get comfy. I don't think I've heard about this, except for in one other person who's linked in the description below. Teal Swan talked about this, but I was having a conversation with my friend about how this is the question. I was talking to my friend, and this is the question that they asked me. If we are spiritual beings within a physical experience, or if we're physical beings within a spiritual experience. So like, what do you think? My friend and I were talking about this and we ended up coming to the same conclusion. But like I said, I've never heard someone in the spiritual community besides Teal Swan talk about this. And if you're not a Teal Swan fan, then that's okay too. But I listed her video on spiritual bypassing down in the description below, because I think that, you know, the 3 sources that I have, the Norse witch, I think it was, who's the other person? Let me see. Sara K. And then Teal Swan. Each of the people that I've listed in the description below, their videos on YouTube, they give, you know, the Norse witch, they give a personal experience with spiritual psychosis, which is not something I can offer you. So please go check out the Norse witch's channel. Not only that video, but so many other ones, because they're very good, especially if you're embarking on your own spiritual journey. Sara K talks about spiritual psychosis, but she gives spiritual psychosis in a way, you know, similar to mine, where she hasn't experienced spiritual psychosis necessarily, but can talk about the dual lens that she's used to view spirituality and the real world through. And it can reach a different type of audience. You know, just like reading a book, sometimes when you pick up a book, you think it's going to be really good, but you don't really like the way the author writes or their writing style. I've given you 3 different people in the description that, based on how they talk and the way that they can present information and what they have to talk about and offer to you, it should appeal to as many of you as possible, because each of their speaking styles and what they have to offer is suitable for different tastes, if you will. So coming back to the question that I was talking about with my friend of, are we spiritual beings within a physical experience, or are we physical beings within a spiritual experience? Literally, just pause the video, type what you think out in the comments. It's okay. It's okay to have a different opinion. I'm excited to see what people have to say, because I even asked my husband and he picked one or the other, and I was interested to see what he had to say as well. But come back and we're going to talk about the answer. It's not really the answer, it's just what my friend and I both came up with. Okay, ready? Go. So the answer that my friend and I came up with is that both are true. We are both spiritual beings within a physical experience, and we are also physical beings within a spiritual experience. It's not one or the other, it's both, at least in my opinion. If that changes, I'll let you know. But my friend and I came to the conclusion that both are true, and I haven't heard another person speak within the spiritual community about this question or even ask it until I did research for this video. And Teal Swan says, quote, "We are not physical beings simply waking up to a spiritual existence. We are also spiritual beings waking up to our physical experience. In fact, the spiritual experience and the physical experience are both spiritual experiences. So do with that what you will. That was like a mind bend for a while, and my friend and I actually argued about it before we came to the conclusion that both are true. But like I said, there will be a link to Teal Swan's video in the description below where she covers spiritual bypassing. But also, I really like what she has to say. So she's kind of like, to me, the female Jordan Peterson. I know about Jordan Peterson because of my husband, but I don't know very much specifically about him in detail. That's just kind of what I was able to gather from watching both of their content intermittently, in a very laissez-faire sort of way, if you will. So I respect Teal Swan as a professional and what she has to say on spiritual bypassing, which is, again, different from spiritual psychosis, which is the topic of today's part 2. However, since becoming a professional in the spiritual community too, I've never really heard someone else talk about that before or ask that question. So my friend and I often discuss different spiritual topics together, and we've come to the conclusion that 2 things can be true at once. And this concept applies to many things, both spiritual and within our own lives. This reminded me of Sara K's perspective from her video that's listed in the description below on how she views the world, or she expresses the importance of being able to learn how to view the world through a dual lens. Because of the concept of spiritual psychosis and spiritual bypassing being brought to my attention, it has made me rethink many things about myself as a professional within the spiritual community. How I fit or don't fit into it, and the ideas and values I want to express using the platform I've built moving forward. At the end of the day, I guess it's just important to ask yourself, are my spiritual practices constantly at the forefront of my mind? Are they keeping me from completing normal everyday tasks? Do I feel like I cannot make a decision on my own and I have to, refer or ask tarot cards, a certain person, oracle deck, another divination source, or a certain ritual? Am I looking for information from others and not asking myself how I feel or what I think about something? So perhaps if you are asking yourself questions like that, maybe it's time to reconnect with a loved one or a friend, because spirituality may not be helping you, but hindering you. Thank you so much for joining me on my part 2 video for a discussion on spiritual psychosis. I hope you learned something. I hope that perhaps you were able to watch this video before you start your spiritual journey. Let me know in the comments below. If you want to listen to the same sort of discussion, but in a little bit of a different flow, recorded on a different day in a different media, go check out the podcast. That'll be linked in the show notes, or you can go all the way back to the video somewhere in the beginning. I might have mentioned it. We'll see. It'll be somewhere listed. If you want to go listen to my podcast episode titled Metaphysical OSHA, a conversation on spiritual psychosis, you can listen to that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, except for Pandora. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that the next time I post, you guys can listen to the next spiritual topic I'll be talking about, which I believe preemptively, without recording it, will be spirit guides, a new revisiting of spirit guides and how to communicate with them. If you're interested in a private reading, feel free to visit the website listed down in the description below. If not, that's okay too. I appreciate all of your support, watching, listening, and subscribing. So until next time, peace out, Brussels sprouts. PsycKicks! It's really fun to do.